panelists who have touched on some themes I'll be talking about today. First, my views today are my own and do not represent those of all members of the Academic Council on the UN system, nor of the US government. Yes, first of all, I'm pleased to say in response to your question that the Secretary General's report does reflect key gaps and challenges in the implementation of the Global Compact. However, much more research is needed to understand these objectives and to make sure that we're not missing anything, especially the voices that are missing at the table today that were identified by my fellow panelists. Today, I'll present some conclusions from academic research briefs that I coordinated for the Network on Migration on 7 recommendations from the Secretary General's report. I worked on these briefs with Professors Kevin Cope of the University of Virginia School of Law, Professor Stella Virch-Elias of the University of Iowa School of Law, and a wonderful research team of students at UVA Law. The recommendations we studied were access to healthcare, inclusion of migrants in COVID-19 recovery and development, inclusion of migrants in national and regional development plans, expanding legal migration pathways, border management, stopping criminalization and obstruction of humanitarian efforts, and the consequences of restrictive deterrence-based migration laws. For each of these, we discussed the state of research on these recommendations, identified research gaps, and made policy recommendations. The reports themselves are available on the Migration Network Hub. Today, I'll be presenting 4 of our cross-cutting conclusions. First, migrant health is public health. Many migrants were particularly vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic. Many UN member states do not include migrants in their national healthcare systems. Even when migrants are included in the national healthcare systems, many are afraid to access healthcare for fear that their data will be shared with law enforcement entities. Even in states where firewalls exist between healthcare systems and law enforcement entities, many migrants do not trust that their data will not be shared. We need to build this trust. Data is limited on the effects of firewalls, and we need more study there. It's too early to know the impacts of COVID-19 on migration and the impacts of migration on COVID-19. Further study is needed to look at the long-term effects and improve public health outcomes for everyone. Second, sector-specific and collaborative migration policies should be encouraged. Sector-specific migration can address critical labor needs in fields like healthcare and can address critical development needs when integrated into national development plans and regional development plans. Many migrants work in economic sectors that were damaged by the pandemic and can help rebuild them. Programs like the Global Skills Partnership and partnerships between states that match migrant skills with labor needs should be encouraged and may serve as models for future frameworks. These policies can also be used to increase regular migration pathways, which will in turn decrease irregular migration. Conclusion 3, restrictive deterrence-based migration policies do not work. Starting well before the pandemic, many states adopted increasingly restrictive border practices and deterrence-based migration policies. Overwhelmingly, however, research has shown that these policies do not deter migration. They simply cause migrants to seek out irregular migration pathways. Many of these restrictive policies, such as externalization of migration to third countries, accommodation in temporary facilities, have involved severe human rights abuses. These must stop. Conclusion 4, we need more data and more research. Our research was unfortunately mostly limited to English sources. Most research on migration policies available in English focuses on a very small number of countries and regions, like the US, European Union, Australia, and Israel. Research is needed in additional countries, additional languages, on a wide variety of issues, and needs to be studied systematically. Data on irregular migration pathways, like smuggling and trafficking, is particularly hard to get. We need migrants to be able to trust that they can share data and share their stories. Good data informs good policies. We need improved disaggregated data to achieve the evidence-based policies that are foundational to the Global Compact for Migration. And as the Global Compact for Migration itself matures, we need research on the long-term effects of the Global Compact itself. I call on every stakeholder in this room and every member state to prioritize data collection and research in order to fulfill the goals of the Global Compact for Migration. Academics can help you. Please let us. The progress of the Global Compact for Migration depends on the progress of migration research. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And we have